Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 5th, 2017 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. If you haven't already done so, there are copies of our agenda on either side of the room on the wooden shelves. Feel free to pick up a copy and you can follow along with tonight's proceedings. There will be an opportunity for public comment under item 5, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature, and anyone wishing to speak at that time will make sure that you have an opportunity to do so. But first, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point, I would like to ask everyone to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. It's always one of my favorite parts of the meeting because it's the one point where no matter what we might have in terms of differences of opinion or disagreements, everybody stands in unison and we all recite the same words. It's always a very great way to start any meeting. So welcome to Village Hall. I am now going to ask for the roll call, so I'll ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Earl?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck? Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, which is the mayor's report. We have one item under the mayor's report tonight, and that is a resolution. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution removing a member from the Library Board of Trustees?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barnett, did you second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda, which pertains to minutes of council meeting minutes. So we have one set of minutes to review. Actually, that's a good segue to something I was going to talk about before we get to item 5, which pertains to public comments of a general nature. And I'll just say this and then I can say it again. One of the things that we highly regard here is respect and decorum for everyone who speaks or doesn't speak. And one thing that I typically do not allow is either any clapping, applauding, groaning, moaning, booing, hissing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when we get to that point, I would just ask everyone, no matter what anyone says, or if they disagree with you or have a different opinion, I would ask that everyone extend everyone in the room the same courtesy and respect and decorum that, quite frankly, we're very proud of maintaining here at 801 Burlington. Now, this little youngster is accepted. We'll let that one go. But everyone else, please, no matter what anyone says, no applause, no hissing or booing, because if that were true, most of what I say throughout the last 6.5 years would get a lot of hissing and booing, and we just never get through our meeting. So I'll reiterate that in a minute. Anyway, we are on item 4, which pertains to the minutes of our council meetings. We have one set of minutes to approve, and those are minutes from our regular council meeting on August 15th, 2017. If there are no changes, questions, comments, or corrections to those minutes, I would ask for a motion to approve, please.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve the meeting minutes from August 15, 2017 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. Now that brings us to item 5, which we've been talking about for a little bit already. And one of the things that we do here is we usually entertain our public comments at the very beginning of our meeting. So we're, less than 10 minutes into our meeting, and we're gonna have public comments of a general nature. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to ask questions or make comments to Village Council on matters of a general nature. We typically have questions and comments about the balance of our consent agenda and our active agenda and our first reading agenda. For anyone who has questions about those items, I will pause and ask if people have questions or comments. But general questions or comments are for anything that is not coming forward yet on the agenda. Now, we'll go back to what I said a little moment ago. What I would like is everyone to, again, want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share their views. But please no applauding, please no whispering, please no hemming or hawing or hissing or booing or applaud or whistling, anything of that. Let's just make sure everyone gets to say what they wish to say in a polite and civil manner. I'm reminded of a story where we had we had busloads of senior citizens who were here for an Oak Trace development not too long ago, and all of them could have schooled each and every one of us on how to conduct themselves during a meeting. They were very passionate about the issue that was on the table, but even though there were groups that were pretty evenly split on the topic, they were all very respectful of one another, and I think we could learn something from our elders and do the same thing here tonight. So here's what I'm going to ask. I'm going to go on a limb here and ask, is anyone here to comment on a topic related to what we just covered under the mayor's report? Show of hands. And everyone who has their hand up intends to speak. Okay, and you don't have to speak if you don't have your hand up. I'm just trying to get an idea of where we're at. We formally have a 5 minutes per speaker rule. But I will tell you, in the almost six and a half years that I've been mayor, I've almost never enforced that rule. My view is that if you took the time and energy to come down here and say something, I'm going to let you say your piece. But please be mindful that obviously by the show of hands, there are a number of other people who would like to speak. And so if you could try to keep your comments under 5 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. And we do have a fair number of items to get to tonight on the agenda, including some things that I'd really encourage everyone to stick around and hear about. Some very, very interesting and exciting investments in two of our industrial parks here in Downers Grove. You're really going to love it. You really ought to stick around and learn all about it. So seriously, if you do, that would be great. One other thing about public comments. If someone has already said what you would like to say, it's not a numbers game. I will ask at the end, does anyone else agree with that person, so that we don't have to have the same 20 people saying the same thing, because again, it's not 20 versus 5, unlike up here where we actually vote on things. We'll certainly understand what folks felt and thought and so on and so forth. So you don't feel that if you don't get up and say something that someone else has already said, that will go unnoticed. Don't worry about that. So with that long predicate, which hopefully is longer than how long public comments will go, the protocol is simply come down to the podium, introduce yourself, and we welcome hearing from you. It's very important that you speak from the podium because our meetings are televised, they're on YouTube, and they're rebroadcast. And if you're not in front of that microphone right there, we might not hear you. If you are unable to reach the podium, just let me know, and I'm sure we can accommodate you. So with that, in whatever orderly, polite fashion everyone would like, whoever would like to speak will take public comments at this point. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Mayor Tully, and the council for your resolution. I'd also like to thank you for your ask to be respectful, because I'm going to share some things that are of a rather personal nature here tonight. And my name is Joel Stava. I'm currently a resident of Westmont, and I am in process of purchasing and plan on building a property in Downers Grove at 5435 Fairhaven Court. I was born in Downers. My father, all my grandparents have lived here, my aunt and uncle live here, and many extended family have also called Downers home. And I've always found it welcoming, and I'd like to ensure that it stays that way for everyone. Today, that personal anecdote I talked about also touches on the welcoming topic. That personal anecdote is that I have experienced, I was previously married to a gay woman. So my goal is twofold: to make sure that you know there are real impacts to ignoring or opposing community diversity efforts, and two, which is hopefully a shared goal, to ensure that all members of this community, including my family, friends, and those I hold dear, will be represented and welcomed by our leadership here. I grew up about an hour south of here after being born in Downers. It was a smaller country town by the name of Wilmington. I remember my childhood fondly, and even as a straight white male, raised Catholic, I didn't have blinders on, and I wouldn't say that it was a welcoming place at the time to non-white, non-Christian, non-straight people. I was formerly married to a woman who I mentioned earlier, and I should add, I only speak for myself in these matters and not for her, but she grew up in another town that she described similarly to the way I just described Wilmington. Not welcoming, not diverse. Later in our marriage, she came out as gay. I was blindsided at the time, and after a long time, I have come to terms with it. I don't blame any one person. But when I look back at the way that the communities treated her, the way that they treated those who were different from myself in the past, and the way that was different from the way I was raised, I don't appreciate that feeling or the presence of that hateful manner. It doesn't make for a better community. And I just want to tell that personal anecdote to say that we are here in your community, people who are different than I am. This includes my family, 2 beautiful children from my first marriage, who are now 4 and 7, who split time in both houses and who are also members of this community. They are affected by the words and actions of those in charge of the community here today and those you will appoint in the future. I'm remarried with a baby on the way. My wife and I are in the process of purchasing and building a home, as I discussed, and we'd like to stay here for the rest of our lives. In fact, we've encouraged my ex-wife and her wife to move here as well. And part of the reason we chose Downers, my wife and I, is for the nostalgia I feel for the place that I love. But part of it is because we see it as a place that's welcoming, where there's a community. My family and friends here, new and old, are thoughtful, empathetic, kind people. My kids and I attend the library regularly. Should I be worried that the leaders and board members who preside over that library do not represent or understand the diversity that's present in our community? The diversity that's present in my own family? I ask you to strongly consider that when you appoint new board members. Finally, I'd just like to close as a parent that I teach empathy to my kids. And as an upcoming resident and taxpayer, I'll demand that the mayor, the council members, and any board members, current and future, learn the same to ensure Downers remains welcoming to all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments? Good evening, welcome.
Hi. My name is Catherine Dice. I'm a librarian. I was a librarian. I've been a library consultant for over 22 years. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of libraries. Since Joel has spoken about urging the mayor and the council to appoint a board that is representative, I won't cover that since you asked us not to do that sort of thing. So, be repetitive. So what I would like to talk about is, first of all, I'd like to applaud our library director, our fine library director, and her staff for being so community-oriented, so outward extending to the rest of us who live here. We feel that every time we go to the library, and I mean it. The strategic plan and the action plan that goes along with it, I have facilitated many a strategic planning process in libraries, and I have seen many plans, and this is a very fine plan. The diversity, inclusion, and equity training that's stated and called for in the action plan is very much forward-looking, very important, and I would underscore that hundreds of libraries in this country have diversity, equity, and inclusion as a centerpiece of their strategic plans. And so this library is right step, if not lead, with this kind of plan. So I want to say ditto, let's have a board that represents the rest of the library, of the community, a library board that represents the rest of the library community. But I also would like to urge one other thing, and I am not looking for business. I really want to say this. I'm a consultant, and I'm not here for looking for business. 2 years ago, I retired from the American Library Association. I'm still trying to retire. And so I really don't want any more business. But what I really want to urge Julie, the library director, and all of you to consider is that the board of the library engage in board development. This is a very standard kind of activity where the board members learn together. And in fact, the board members could learn diversity, equity, and inclusion issues together and therefore be better stewards for the community that we treasure here in Downers Grove. I'm a 10-year-plus resident of Downers Grove, and I don't want to leave here at all. And so I am very thankful that you are listening to us today and that we have an opportunity to say what is on our minds. I actually believe that this is a turning point for us, I think, in thinking about what does the library board need to be doing as a steward of the library, what is management, what is leadership, governance, and I think as long as Julie can, and the board president and the board members can learn together, then we'll be on the right track here. So I appreciate very much your listening to me, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Tully and Commissioners, for your resolution today regarding the library board. Mr. Mayor, upon learning about this issue, I felt compelled to speak today. Discrimination, harassment, hate speech, and bigotry are not values I share. And I believe we must represent Downers Grove residents, and most of us would likely agree that we do not share those values. In fact, I believe these values are simply put un-American. A library is a place of knowledge, of learning, of education, of culture, and of information. That includes information about many diverse views, diverse cultures, ideas, and values. A library should be a resource for all residents, not just for those who share a certain narrow worldview. Perhaps this is why Downers Grove has a clearly defined anti-discrimination and harassment policy in its personnel manual. As you're aware, these policies serve a necessary purpose in supporting a discrimination-free workplace. Section 2.4 of the Downers Grove Personnel Manual states, and I quote, "The village shall provide a working environment free from unlawful discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, gender, sexual orientation, marital status, genetic information, physical or mental disabilities, ancestry, military status, or order of protection status." It also says the village will not tolerate discrimination and/or harassment of any of its employees. As described in the manual, discrimination is any hostile or offensive act, expression against a person on the grounds of race, color, religion, sexual orientation, gender, etc. Harassment is further defined as conduct, verbal or physical, towards another person or identifiable group of persons that has the purpose of A, creating an intimidating or hostile work environment, B, unreasonably interfering with a person's work environment, C, unreasonably affecting a person's work opportunities, or D, causing an individual to feel intimidated, demeaned, or abused, which I think is apropos. The policy goes on to state that violations may result in discipline up to and including discharge. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I ask you, why should the Library Board not be subject to the same policy? We cannot allow our board members to stray away from policies designed to promote an environment free from discrimination or harassment, and I believe this is important in keeping our community safe and welcoming to all. Furthermore, I'd like to ask you today that these policies and the applicants' backgrounds be considered with all future appointments so that we're not in the same position again. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, welcome.
Hello, my name is Lisa Scott, and I have lived in Downers Grove since 1999. My notes are in my phone, so I'm not one of the distracted teenagers who can't put it down. So I'm the mother of an LGBT child. We moved here from Chicago when she was only 1, and she's now a young adult. She's in college. She's a National Merit Scholar. She's a State Farm Scholar with a perfect 4.0 GPA at college. I'll tell you a few things about her. She's brave. She came out to her family and friends while she was a junior in her junior year of high school. Ask yourself if you would be that brave. to live your true, authentic life, knowing that there are people in this world who will disapprove of you, simply because of who you are. Would you have the backbone to do it anyway? I admire everything she's done to be herself in a community that isn't always accepting. I would like to point out, she attended Downers Grove North High School. A shout out to the administration at North. My child was fully supported there, and it was the administration was terrific. I wish I could also say the same for the population at large. There is hate in our community, and it's ugly. I want to live in a community where my child is welcome, where there's a smile on the faces of people as she goes through all of the life events that all of us go through, finds a partner, thrives in a career, has children of her own. I will say the library holds a special place for my family. I have a family of readers. My kids are more often meeting their friends at the library than anywhere else. They study there. It's a social environment, and I think it's such a jewel and a gem at the center of our village. It's enormously valuable to our family personally, and I know it's valuable to the village. I want my child to feel welcomed here in Downers Grove. It's a place that she's called home her entire life. So Mayor Tully, I implore you to appoint a library trustee who's appreciative of the diversity in Downers Grove, will promote an inclusive library environment for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Just a little reminder. No applause, no booing, no hissing. Thank you. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Baker. I live here in Downers Grove. I've lived here for 12 years with my husband Dan, and we have a 5-year-old son, Benjamin. I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional from Lisa. I apologize. I'm also pregnant, so it doesn't help.
Well, that we can applaud.
My husband has 2 lesbian sisters, and counting their wives, my son has 4 lesbian aunts. And they're amazing, and they love him dearly, and they often visit, and they always take him to the library. It's one of his favorite places. I also run the organization DG Marchers, which has offered me an incredibly unique and fortunate opportunity to get to know so many wonderful people and of all various diversities and backgrounds that live here in Downers Grove. And the people that have spoken so far tonight are a part of that organization, and proud to know them all. I wanted to pass a picture of a family around to you. They couldn't be here tonight and asked me to speak on their behalf. Their names are Amy and Erica. They're a lesbian couple. They have a son, Ethan, he's 5, and they're foster parents to a little boy, 10 weeks old. Leon's his name. He's fantastic. They attend church every Sunday here in Downers Grove at First United Methodist, and they sing in the choir. And if I had to pick one thing, if you told me I can only choose one thing that made Downers Grove amazing, I would definitely, without question, say it was because Amy and Erica live here. If you don't know them, get to know them. They're just wonderful. They're kind and funny and compassionate and loving and charitable, and they don't have any agenda other than to live a happy and healthy life with their family. All of us here tonight, despite our different political views and ideologies, share so much more in common than we think. And most importantly, we share in common the need for our loved ones to feel safe and happy. I was with Amy and Erica when they read the notes from the Library Board of Trustees meeting, and they were very sad and very hurt and very worried about the safety and happiness of their children and each other. And I wanted to mention that tonight we have in the audience a woman named Barnali. She was sitting next to me over here. And thanks to some Confederate flags that have come up in our neighborhood and a man who drives a Confederate flag decorated truck around, her and other people who are brown living in our community are fearing that they may be targeted as well. Even I don't feel entirely comfortable speaking here tonight because I know that my support for an inclusive community might not be welcomed in some corners of this village. We can't let this continue to spread in Downers Grove. And Mayor Tully and the rest of the council, you hold a unique position in that you are leaders in this community. You can help set the tone, and we need everyone here, no matter who they love or what skin color they are, to feel safe and happy, and for their loved ones to feel safe and happy and for them to be able to actively participate in our community. So Mayor Tully and the rest of the council, tonight we ask you to commit to appointing 2 qualified candidates to the Downers Grove Public Library Board of Trustees who respect and represent and can advocate for Downers Grove's varied and diverse demographic, who will be willing to participate fully in board development activities like inclusion training, and will allow everyone in Downers Grove to have an equal opportunity for continued participation in our community. Can you all make this commitment to us tonight?
We typically don't answer questions during the public comment.
Okay.
But I'll be happy actually to discuss the broader appointment process. This is probably not the time or the place, but I'm happy to. I was going to say, I was telling someone earlier tonight that in the 6.5 years that I've been mayor, I've appointed and reappointed probably around 212 people. And you can probably, most people probably don't even know what our boards and commissions are, but if you look at them, I think that we're already pretty far along in meeting the goal that you're talking about. But I'd be happy to talk about that offline. It's more involved than the simple answer that your question. Your answer deserves a more sophisticated question than I can give you right now.
Okay. Just know as you consider that it's really important to so many people in this community to just feel like they're represented on every level of local leadership.
Understood. And again, I think all of us would look at our boards and commissions generally and think that we're doing. You can always do better. I think we're doing pretty well in terms of representation of the makeup of the community.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to speaking with you about it.
I do as well. Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments? Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Gloria Walsh-Rock. I live at 6212 Lyman in Downers Grove. I want to thank you for your unanimous affirmation of this resolution tonight, and this is why. As a Downers Grove taxpayer, I want my tax dollars to go to a library that maintains resources for all its citizens, regardless of who they are or who they love. As a Downers Grove parent, I believe it's my family's right and no one else's to decide what library materials are appropriate and not appropriate for my own children. And I expect my library to have the widest possible breadth of resources for me to choose from to teach my children about the world and the people around them so that they can become caring and informed citizens. As a sibling of a gay sister and the aunt of a transgender nephew, both of whom I love dearly, and as a member of PFLAG, a national organization that works to support and build strong families on their life journeys with gay, lesbian, and transgender loved ones, I see the challenges faced by people just trying to live their lives, like you and me, but having to wage daily personal battles against verbal and emotional abuse and real physical danger, in great part enabled by language and policies that perpetuate hostility toward them as the other and not deserving of respect or common decency. I'm also a librarian. I don't work at the Downers Grove Public Library, but I have in the past. I understand that the power of free speech is the bedrock of our democracy. We all have the right to speak our mind as private citizens. However, remarks made by library trustees in library board meetings are held to a higher standard. Public discourse is how we grow democracy, but not with words that demean, marginalize, or belittle others. The public library sits at the heart of our democracy, and it best serves our own community by offering the broadest possible range of ideas for citizens to read, learn, and discuss. Our library, like public libraries across the nation, is to be a resource and a support for learning and living for all of Downers Grove citizens, even those who are most marginalized in our own community. As we've heard, there are gay people and transgender people living right here in Downers Grove, and they have every right to the same exceptional library service as everyone else. That includes the right to work at the library, the right to be treated with understanding and cordiality by a trained and knowledgeable staff, and the right to find books about people like them on the library shelves. They also have the right to find books about straight people on the shelves, to learn about people who are different from themselves, just as straight people, have the right to find LGBT books on the shelves to learn about people who are different from themselves. This is the essence of the public library, and each library trustee must accept the responsibility that comes with their appointment. The library is for all, and it's the duty of the Library Board of Trustees to keep it that way. You are the governing body that appoints library trustees, and I expect you to appoint members to the library board who will uphold this charge. And when they do not, I appreciate that you dismiss them. I'm very proud of the Downers Grove Public Library and its work towards being intentionally inclusive. And I want to stay proud of my library as a taxpayer, a parent, a PFLAG member, and a librarian. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Please make your way down. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jeanette Ward. I'm a member of the U46 Board of Education, but my views do not necessarily represent the views of U46 Board as a whole. I find it ironic that you in this room speak of tolerance, and yet you just dismissed someone because you are intolerant of their opinion. I'd like to point out the irony of a library, which is supposed to support diverse opinions, firing someone over his diverse opinion. There is one thing that one side of this argument cannot abide, and that is diversity of thought, which is the most important kind of diversity. As Rand Paul likes to say, you can be a minority because of the color of your skin or the shade of your ideology. However, unlike race, sexual behavior is a volitional activity about which it is perfectly valid to hold moral views and to express them. Disapproval or disagreement does not equal hatred. In fact, some of the people who love you the most are the ones who have the courage to tell you the truth. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments? Again, no applause either way, please.
Hi,
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Ann Stava Murray. I'm a resident of Naperville, but this is actually my brother sitting behind me. And I couldn't listen to that last comment without adding my own additional comment. Our uncle actually was born in Downers Grove, and he was gay. And he went to St. Mary's and to Bennett, and he was never out in this community, and it wasn't welcome when he lived here. And so he found his refuge in cities and communities and the gay community elsewhere. He's no longer with us to speak for himself today. So I bring forth my comments in honor of his memory. And my parents are residents here. My uncle's sister, my aunt, is here tonight as well, who are both taxpayers. But my point was going to be in reference to build on some of what was said earlier about the employee handbook. So I recently went through diversity training, and they really clearly defined what harassment is. And what it's defined as is that if you say something that offends someone, then it makes it a less welcoming environment. And so whether or not everyone's viewpoint of what's moral is maybe different and of their own, but if you offend someone else, then you're not actually, it doesn't matter whether or not you're abiding by your own morality, you're going against this employee guidebook. And so the term I'm going to talk about is a term that was used, which was homosexuals. So the term homosexual was actually used during the entirety of the time that my uncle lived here as a clinical disorder within the APA, American Psychological Association, handbook as a disordered, a sexual deviance disorder. That is why that term is offensive. So if you hear someone referring to a group of people as homosexuals, that can be a good key to you that perhaps that person might create an environment that is not the inclusive environment that you want to create. I just wanted to follow up that comment with a little alternate point, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. I am Claire Jarris, and it's amazing what social media is able to do nowadays. Build up, tear down, encourage, criticize, or educate. The action you've taken this evening implies you cannot tolerate someone who disagrees with you, instead of learning to accept tolerance of others. Diversity exists on both sides of the aisle. It's too bad the sides cannot learn from one another, but rather enjoy tearing each other apart. How yet to better ourselves by finding out the realities of our differences, and in doing so, we become a better person. Do you have the courage of conviction to face the reality of diversity, uniqueness amongst your very own? To look within yourself and ask, would you desire a library board or village council member to have 100% the same identical idealistic views as yourself? Or would you be open to diversity of another's opinion or thoughts to expand your horizon of learning and listening? What message are you sending to the next group of volunteers? For they too have the potential to be dismissed at your discretion. By seeing the differences in one another, we become better individuals, for we are given the opportunity to grow, to nurture, and develop into better human beings. Phil Robertson says, quote, "Our culture has accepted two huge lies. The first is you disagree with someone's lifestyle, you must fear or hate them. The second is that to love someone means you agree with everything they believe or do. Both are nonsense. You don't have to compromise convictions to be compassionate. We all need to have attitudes and acknowledgement of others, not for what they believe. Be grateful that they believe in something they care enough about, and not in doing so create havoc for those that think otherwise. Art Jarris is a very unique individual. I've been married to him for almost 37 years. Compassionate about his beliefs. You may agree with him, you may not agree with him at all, but have you learned to accept his diversity? Madison, Jefferson, and Franklin did not agree on everything, yet they had the compassion of their convictions to realize that united, they could together seek a new beginning. This community of Downers Grove has seen many changes over the last several years. Our compassion should be about uniting us in our differences and together learn from one another for our time.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. I've lived in this town for 10 years. I've never came to a meeting before. I disagree with this board's decision, so when it comes time to vote, I will have to vote to fire all of you, just as you voted with somebody that disagreed with you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Please. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, welcome. My name is Laura Murray. I'm a resident, 11 years of Downers Grove. I have a 12-year-old daughter who attends the Avery Coonley School, and I have nothing prepared, so this is going to be short and sweet and off the cuff. I also have never attended a village council meeting in 11 years. But wow, I'm so lucky that my daughter goes to such a diverse school, the Avery Coonley School. They have such an inclusion policy for every race, nationality, religion, sexual orientation. And so unfortunately my daughter is a bit in a bubble in that sense, but she's 12 years old, she's in 7th grade, and she's, you know, growing up and learning the ways of the world. And I had to explain to her where I was going tonight and explain why I was coming here and why I felt it was important. And I didn't really relish explaining that to a 12-year-old, but she needs to know. And I appreciate what Mrs. Jaros's comments were. However, we're not saying that we're ousting somebody or disliking somebody because of their views. Mr. Jaros can have any views he wishes. However, when you're in a trustee position on a board of a public library, those views need to be kept to himself. He can still make decisions based on inclusion, but carry off those personal feelings and beliefs in his personal life with his family friends, etc. I just think it's very, very important to have the inclusion training and to be inclusive for every single member of the community. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience?
I just have a quick question regarding public comments for other items on the agenda. Is there going to be public comment period for items 7 and 8 on the agenda, or is this the only public? Why is that funny?
These are the things I'm inviting people to stick around for.
I heard you talk, but when you said public comment, I wasn't sure if this is the only time.
No.
Or these other.
There will be an opportunity for public comment after each and every
Perfect.
one
That's
of
all
these
I wanted to know.
Under 6, 7, and 8. And 9, and maybe 10. Any other questions or comments with respect to of a general nature? Good evening, welcome. I suspect the answer is yes.
Yes. Again, I wasn't planning on speaking. I'm not dressed for it. I'm very sorry. I tucked my daughter into bed and ran over here. And I also didn't prepare anything because I suspected everyone would say what I kind of thought, and they more or less have. But I did want to say one thing, and that is about diversity of thought. I agree that it is incredibly important in a community as diverse as Downers Grove is that the opinions be heard by everyone, and everyone is welcome to their own opinion and their own beliefs, and I applaud people who can stand strong in their beliefs. It's a quality I greatly admire. But those who hold public positions, those offices are held in such high esteem, and your positions are in such a great state of trust from the public. So we ask that you represent the entire community, not because we're interested in stifling your own personal views, but because we want to see our money spent on services and places that the entire community is welcome to go. And I think that someone earlier mentioned that it is up to every parent, every family to decide for themselves what views their children are exposed to, what they themselves want to read and understand and learn about. And I'm going to paraphrase something that I read on our neighborhood social media because it's just too good not to repeat. I think if Mr. Jarls would like to write a book about his beliefs, he should do exactly that, and I would expect that it would be available in the Downers Grove Public Library for everyone to choose whether or not they'd like to read that book.
You said no clapping before.
Yes, no clapping, I'm sorry.
I
didn't clap. I didn't clap for myself.
And you probably know that person in royalty now.
I'm sorry? I do, I probably do, you're right.
I'm right here.
Oh, was it you? Oh, that was too funny. I should have given you a chance. I didn't know who you were. But there's one more thing I'd like to say. My godmother is a librarian and has been for almost 30 years now. And I was brought to libraries almost every day, I want to say, in childhood because my mom had 3 kids and we needed to go somewhere. Libraries were public, available, and wow, what a great childhood I had. What a wonderful upbringing I had at a public library where every book from every school of thought, it was all at my fingertips, and I am a better person for a broader education that was brought to me by my public library. So thank you for continuing to support the Public Library of Downers Grove, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments of a general nature? Good evening, welcome.
Hi, my name is Deborah Stava. I live at 49294 Forest Avenue, right across the tracks, in the building over there across from AT&T. I'm a taxpayer, a very, very good taxpayer. Our condo's in the district of the business area, so we get taxed extra. Why, I don't know, but we do. So anyway.
I'm happy to explain that to you offline, too.
I would love to hear why we are getting...
Anyway, when we have that meeting, I'd like you to come back.
Okay, thank you. I am here because I am the grandmother of 2 children whose mother is gay. This is my son. I'm very proud of him for standing up. My daughter, who stood up and spoke, went to Avery Coonley, where we learned about the beautiful diversity and how a community of educators comes together and builds. We are a family, every family. I am Catholic. I go to St. Joe's Church. I support the church. I support the community through volunteering and helping with different things, and I love all the taxes that get paid to the police department who help protect our community. For everybody that's here, I respect you greatly. When I was little, we were taught to respect everyone. My father was in the Army. 6 of his brothers served together. They served so that every one of you can get up here at the podium. Every one of you can sit there and have the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is wonderful for those who don't agree, for those who do agree, but the whole point of it is come together so we can have our freedom. Whether you're conservative and I'm a Republican, or whether you're Democrat, whether you're on the far right or the far left, there is the middle. When you get married, what do? You're bringing 2 whole different families together. When you're in a community and you're building, what happens? People move here with all different values and all different strides of life and all different backgrounds. We're all human beings first. And you talk about respect, and you talk about being tolerant, and you talk about being sensitive.
I hate to interrupt you, but just another little thing I forgot to mention. As much as possible, please direct your comments to us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
Okay.
not the audience. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I consider it one big family, so I'm sorry. I'm a grandma, I can't help it. Anyway,
Reminder, thank
the
you.
whole point is we're bringing everybody together. And as human beings, everyone wants to be respected. And yes, you can have a different opinion, and it may not be liked, because I'm conservative and I have opinions, but there is a time and point where, as my mother so eloquently said, there's a time as a grandparent you want to tell your kid, and Joel knows this, and Ann knows this because they are parents of our grandchildren, you want to say, why don't you do this? Or why don't you think that way? And you know what? There's a time my mom taught me 3 famous words. Shut up, Irene. And you know what? There comes a time when you have to bite your tongue, and you have to let people learn on their own. And you have to give them the tools. And a library offers tools for everybody to learn many different things. And when you're appointing somebody, you have to have a broader vision, because when things happened in our family that I didn't like, I had to sit back, and we have to take account of ourselves. It's easy to judge others, but do you ever look inwardly and judge yourself and feel what's coming out? Do you ever look at introspectively and see what you want to leave for your grandchildren and what you want to teach them? We are where we are. It is what it is. We are not 1955 with homes being built and rose gardens being planted. They are, but now we have daffodils in with the roses, or pine trees in with the palm trees. You have a lot of diversity. You are like a family. You are like the leaders of the Downers Grove community family. And to keep having people that will not accept and move forward because our generation is going, you have to think, what do I want to set forth for our grandchildren, for the future? What kind of opportunities are we going to allow for them? And if you keep stepping back and saying, oh, we can't have that, we can't tolerate that, then when is it ever going to change? You have the power now to change that. And I actually, literally, will pray over that for you guys, because it is not an easy decision. And I have the right to say I will pray. Others may say I don't believe in God. There is no prayer. Okay, I'll have hopeful thoughts for you. Think positively. I will take my spirit and put it out there. I will take time away from what I might think of to offer my thoughts for you. That's the kind of thing you want to do. And you want to set up a generation of kindness, tolerance, patience, acceptance, so that we can all live our life. First, we are human beings. We are split into male and female, whatever point they choose, we are. And any other adjectives you add on to a person is your way of perceiving them. I see a blonde woman. I see a brunette woman. I see somebody wearing blue. I see somebody wearing black. I see somebody wearing white.
Is there a time limit?
Excuse me, I didn't
Excuse me,
interrupt you.
sir. I explained at the beginning that there is a time limit of 5 minutes. Some chose to use it, some chose not to. I've rarely enforced the time limit, but I was going to ask you to perhaps
I am
wrap
wrapping it
up.
up.
The gentleman over there is about to collapse. He's been standing on the stairs for quite some time. And just this
Excuse me, but that demeans my comment by saying that, and I don't appreciate that.
Oh, excuse me. Both
I
of
was
you.
wrapping it up.
Ma'am, sir, please. Actually, I was speaking. Now, please, ma'am. Let me ask, we'll take this break to ask a question. How many people remaining in the room still would like to speak? Show of hands. Okay, we're not too bad. I just want to make sure that there are people behind you that would like
I
to speak.
understand. I was wrapping it up.
They've been waiting about an hour. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I too was waiting a very long time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
My point is, we're all human beings, and when you take the humanness out of the being, then we are nothing more than animals, groveling after each other, fighting within species, and that's not acceptable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments? Other folks who have not spoken? Well, now you have to speak. I pointed you out. Good evening. Welcome.
My name is David Haugen. I live on Forest Avenue. I've lived in Downers Grove since 1975. I supported the library referendum. I volunteered for the library. I donated to Friends of the Library. There was a previous comment about the village policies advocating inclusion and non-harassment. I want everyone to know that the library also has such a document which says essentially the same thing. And I also want to know, and it's in my remarks that are posted at the village website, that there is an Illinois manual for library board of trustees. And anyone can read that and determine whether or not they believe the council made the correct decision. I firmly believe that a member of a public commission, council, needs to be fundamentally in agreement with the mission of the organization that they are supporting. For example, if you have an environmental commission, I wouldn't want someone who wants to cut down all the trees because we want more sunlight. Finally, I have a procedural question. As I was doing my research, I noticed that there were 6 members' photographs. Then I read the library's charter, and it says there are 6 members. Almost all public bodies that I know of have an odd number of members so that there can never be a tie. I bring that to your attention. I don't know what it is for any of your other boards and commissions, but it seems strange to me.
It is unique within the village environment, and it is a unique creature, as I understand it, of the Illinois Library Code and the way this library was set up in our particular environment.
The library code for the state of Illinois defines 9 members.
I didn't set up the library. It was set up a long time ago. That's the way it's always been, and maybe we can have another conversation about the way it should be.
Okay.
Not tonight. Thank you for your comments. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Bernali Quinty. I live at 5256 Carpenter Street, and I was not planning on speaking today because I did not want to be the person of color. But since it hasn't happened yet, I thought I would get up. We moved to Downers Grove from Berwyn, which was an incredibly diverse community. We moved here because of Avery Coonley, where my children attend school, and we wanted to be closer to the school. And I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. So the old South. And I've never felt living there my entire life the way I feel living here. I have been chased by a man with a Confederate flag who has followed me several times. I'm not sure how he keeps finding me, but he keeps finding me. And I'll call you guys next time. Luckily, I've always had neighbors, or I just keep driving until I lose them. I love Downers Grove. We want to raise our children here. We are in the process, those of you who know us, of building on a landmark home. Thanks to all of you for being so supportive of our process. I just want you to understand, I know that the attack was possibly on LGBT families, but it felt like a personal attack on me because we moved here because we love this town, because the schools are good. We want our girls to go Downers Grove North. But we will leave here if we see Downers Grove become a town of no diversity. I don't see any diversity up there. And I know that you're saying it's diverse, but there's none there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will look forward to your petition for the next election. That's the way you make it diverse, folks. People have to run for office. And that who runs for office is determined by the people around the community. You have to sign a petition, you have to get on the ballot, and then your peers will elect you. That, all of you in the audience control. I don't control that. None of us up here control that. Who sits up here is entirely within your hands, always has been, always will be. And so you have the power to change that any way wish you want. You heard the gentleman earlier today, he plans on changing it in the next election. All of you have the same power. So that, go with God. And just seriously, obviously, anyone who has been threatened by anybody, you absolutely should contact the police department and let them know. I mean, obviously, that goes without saying. Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from the audience? General nature.
Hi, my name's David Deal, and I'm a resident of Downers Grove. Good evening. I was thinking a lot about what I've heard tonight. I was thinking about the action you just took tonight, the vote you took as a village council. I've been thinking about the comments I've been hearing, and it seems to me that this issue that has been rocking our city that you voted on tonight comes down to one word, and that's leadership. In my view, leadership means more than representing our community. It means trying to make our community a better place. Tonight, I believe you've exercised leadership with your vote, with your collected decision. You have voted against hatred. You have voted against intolerance. You have voted to affirm inclusion. You have voted to try to make our community a better place. That is leadership. I would ask, in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead, that you continue to exercise leadership and make our community a better place. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments? The general nature from members of the audience. Yes, please.
Hi.
Good evening. Welcome.
Wasn't planning on speaking either, so. My name's Laura McTighe. I've lived here 13 days.
Commissioner Jose will bring you your welcome basket. He's a little late.
Great. So anyway, my wife and I moved here 13 days ago, and I planned on using the library. I will as soon as I can get over there and get a card. I just haven't had a chance. And I really don't care about people's I want people to have a diversity of thought, and I'm fine with people, whatever they may think, good, bad, or whatever about me and who I am or my life. I think for me, if I drill back down into what got me involved, I've never been to a meeting, I've never commented on this next door stuff, but I've been on it. Because what I read, if the League of Women Voters records of notes were correct, what I was reading was that the board was having a discussion, there was a discussion about inclusiveness training. And a member of the board was uncomfortable with that. And if I'm understanding the notes and if they were taken accurately, it was more or less because he wanted to protect children from me. That's where it got personal, and that's my library. Like, if he wants to think that way, and most of the time, elected officials, they're all over the place. I don't care. But now he's saying children in the library need to be protected from me. And I'm like, that just seemed too personal. And that's why I'm here. I appreciate all the straight white people in the audience. who are here to speak out for folks like myself or folks of color. I mean, we move, I just wanted to say thank you for that. Thank you for taking action. I appreciate it because of the position he's in and the stance he was taking.
Thank you for your comments. And once again, the 2017 election, there were in the 2017 election, or the last election, there were 4 seats up, and everybody ran unopposed. There's another one in 2019. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Before you do, anyone who has not already spoken?
It's just 2 seconds, I promise.
It's up to you.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I know that you ran unopposed in 2017. It's just that you can appoint people to our library board. They're not running right now.
Oh, I understand that. The comment was about there being no diversity up here.
I know.
That is in the control of
We're just hoping that if we encourage diverse applicants to apply, that you'll consider.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Heather, and I've been a resident of Downers Grove for 6 years. I wasn't planning on speaking. I wanted to come and bring my son. It's both our first village board meeting. But one thing that strikes me, when I was in high school, and I went to a high school in the northwest suburbs, I had a persuasive speaking class. And it was supposed to be controversial. We had to pick a topic we were very passionate about. So everybody picked their topic, and we went up to our teacher. And our teacher said, great, you are going to be arguing the opposing view for that. Well, I knew exactly what I was going to be speaking about. I had researched it, I was passionate about it. I mean, he had us working on this for a while. I knew nothing about any different views. And where did I go? The library. And I think no matter what your view is, it's very important that you can get the information. And I want my son to be able to have any information at his fingertip, not just on the internet, because I don't want him going on, getting wrong information. I want him to be able to go to the library, to be able to discuss with people who can help facilitate conversations with others who are different from us. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Any other speakers under general comments? Yes, sir. Again, everyone doesn't have to feel compelled to speak. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I don't have anything prepared, so I'll try to just be kind of quick. My name is Matt Cizek. I've been a Downers Grove resident for 21 years. And I've known Mr. Jaros all that time, going back to when I was 8 years old. About 10 years ago, sorry, it's hard to talk about. I had a very serious battle with depression, and many people did not know what to do because of it. One of the only families to really stick beside me during that time was Mr. Jaros' family, with him, of course, as the patriarch, and he was a huge support to me. And I'm actually a language arts teacher, and I teach argument writing, and so I'm very familiar with biases and how important the evaluative process is, and I realized from talking that it may appear that I'm biased because I've kind of grown up with Mr. Jaros, but from an evaluative perspective, I just want to say, with all due respect to others' opinions, I don't understand how a difference in opinion leads to hate and intolerance, so to speak, because in 21 years of having known him personally, that's not the man I know. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other speakers? Yes, please. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, my name's John. Kind of along the same lines as Matt, I have nothing prepared, just felt I wanted to say something about this. I've known Kurt for a long time, we grew up together, and the one house that was always completely welcoming more than anyone else's was Kurt's. His father, who I met at a very young age, was very respectable and an honorable man, and it's been like that all throughout my life because they're very close family friends. No matter what group someone was from, from any walk of life, color, background. They would always accept you into their home and treat you like family. So I felt obligated to say that, and do feel like you made the wrong decision in what you did tonight. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else with respect to items of a general nature, questions or comments of a general nature under item 5? All right, very well. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming down and expressing their views, and thank you for everyone preserving the decorum that I asked you to at the very beginning. It's on behalf of my colleagues and everyone here, we really appreciate it. Someone asked me earlier tonight, Mayor, would it really offend you if after item 5 we all got up and left? And if I said yes, would you all stay? Although there really are some really important economic development projects on the table you might want to stick around and hear about, talk about the economic vitality of our community. But I also understand that people probably do want to leave, so what I'm going to do is just pause the meeting. We're not going to recess or anything, and allow those who wish to leave at this point in time to please do so, because otherwise I'm afraid no one will hear us. Probably not. Not here. Maybe in about 2 minutes, I can have everybody take their seats again, please. Please take their seats again, and we'll come to order shortly. If someone could get the doors, please. Any chance we can get those two? Thank you. No? Apparently, where's an engineer when you need one?
We got Stan. He's way
Thank you,
better,
Stan.
way better than an engineer.
How many planners does it take to close the door? All right, thank you very much for everyone's patience, but now we can conduct business. So we're going to continue on our agenda. We are now on item 6, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Bertolli, I move that this council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any items on tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Wallace? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7, which is our active agenda. We have 3 items on our active agenda tonight. First, do I have a motion under item 7A? Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance authorizing a special use for 1644 Ogden Avenue to permit an automobile dealership?
Bertolli, I move that this council adopt an ordinance authorizing a special use for 1644 Ogden Avenue to permit an automobile dealership as presented.
Second. Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Commissioner Earl.
Yes, I asked at the time, maybe it was last meeting or maybe it was through staff, to put forward something asking that the test drive map be kept in the car when the car was out for test drive. And I think in maybe all of the other things that were going on, maybe this item didn't get the consideration that maybe it should have. I don't know if it needs to be, maybe it needs to be all car dealers, maybe it needs to be a new business item. I can go with that, but I just wanted to bring it up before we voted on this item so that we could have that in our mind before we went forward, and whether or not I should make an amendment to include it right now.
Thanks for asking the question. If I remember correctly, it came up that it was viewed to be a broader issue, that we're going to have a set map for test drives throughout the village, that we ought to have that and then make it part of what all automobile dealerships in town that utilize test drives to abide by, and that would be sort of its own project. I don't think we're dropping that. I think it's probably not ready for prime time for purposes of this special use, if I remember correctly.
Just looking for clarification before.
Fair enough. It's on the record. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes unanimously. And I know you were thrown off there because he's wearing a tie tonight. Moved to item 7B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance to rezone certain property located immediately south of 1723 Ogden Avenue?
Bertolli, I move that this council adopt an ordinance rezoning a certain property located immediately south of 1723 Ogden Avenue as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7C as in Charlie. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending ordinance number 5539, authorizing a special use for 1723 Ogden Avenue to permit an automobile dealership?
Bertolli, I move that this council adopt an ordinance amending ordinance 5539, authorizing a special use for 1723 Ogden Avenue to permit an automobile dealership as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Sir, please, if you could come to the podium. Good evening. Welcome back.
Hello. David Haugen, Forest Avenue. I was just wondering how this affects the revenue for the village. Is it significant or not?
I'm going to turn over to the village manager because my screen just froze up and I was about to answer your question.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. This is
Mr. Fieldman, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Tully and Council. Thank you. This is an expansion of an existing dealership located on Ogden Avenue, or if I'll be correct, Ogden and Lee, that's correct, expansion of an existing one. So the hope is, and the plan is, that this actually expands the revenue for both the business and the sales tax revenue generated for the village.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Other questions or comments on this item from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Wallace? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously, and that brings us to the end of our active agenda. It brings us to item 8, which is our first reading of our workshop agenda. This is a less formal part of our meeting where items are presented for discussion and consideration purposes only. No final vote or action is taken at this time. Typically, what we do is have village staff or petitioners present on the topic first, and then we switch it around a little bit. The village council gets to ask questions first, and then we'll turn it over to any questions or comments from members of the audience. So with that, I will turn the first reading of the workshop agenda over to our village manager, previously introduced as David Fieldman, and either he or a member of staff will introduce the items. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Tully. There are 4 items on tonight's first reading agenda, but 2 issues concerning 2 properties investing in our industrial and business parks. The first item is a resolution authorizing an incentive agreement with Rexnord Industries, LLC. Here to present information on this item is the President and CEO of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, Michael Casa.
Good evening, Mr. Casa. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Tully and village commissioners. Michael Casa, as Dave indicated, I'm president of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation at 5159 Mokel in downtown Downers Grove. I am very pleased to present the proposed incentive agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Rexnord Industries. A few months ago, our office was contacted by Cushman & Wakefield, one of the nation's premier site consulting firms. They had been retained for a confidential project known as, at the time, as Project Altitude. Their client was Rexnord Industries. Rexnord is a 125-year-old company based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Rexnord is a multi-platform industrial leader that serves a diverse array of global markets. The company determined that its aerospace facilities at 2400 Curtis in the Ellsworth Business Park must either be redeveloped or relocated elsewhere. Rexnord retained Cushman & Wakefield to conduct a confidential national search for a site that would be home to a new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility and aerospace division headquarters. The project would be a minimum of 200,000 square feet, but is very likely to actually be closer to 250,000 square feet. Cushman & Wakefield considered sites in Illinois and out of state, as well as the existing Rexnord property in the Ellsworth Business Park. The Downers Grove site would require redevelopment and construction of a new facility. The consultants from Cushman & Wakefield, as well as senior officials from Rexnord, indicated that economic incentives were a critical factor in their site selection process. The first phase of the incentive request was a property tax abatement agreement between Rexnord and the 2 school districts. On August 21st of this year, the Board of Community High School District 99 unanimously approved the abatement agreement. A week later, on August 28th, the Board of Downers Grove Grade School District 58 also unanimously approved the abatement agreement. The economic incentive agreement between the village and Rexnord includes the following terms. Rexnord will redevelop the property at 2400 Curtis for the construction of a new manufacturing operations and the establishment of a new aerospace headquarters. Rexnord shall comply with all village ordinances and applicable laws. Rexnord shall diligently pursue obtaining all required permits for the construction of the project. Rexnord shall obtain certificates of occupancy by June 30th, 2019. Rexnord shall continue operations at the property for a minimum of 5 years. If Rexnord fails to do so, it agrees to pay the village the total amount of the fee waiver. The Village of Downers Grove agrees to waive 50% of permit fees associated with the construction of the project. There are many benefits to this project. Rexnord will redevelop an old and antiquated site into a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. Downers Grove will now be home to their aerospace division headquarters. The project will become a new significant anchor for the Ellsworth Business Park. The alternative, of course, is a large vacant facility. And Rexnord will generate overnight stays in Downers Grove hotels, resulting in hotel tax revenue. In addition, Rexnord employees and visitors will become customers at local restaurants, generating additional sales tax revenue. This is a big win for Downers Grove. Attracting a new manufacturing facility as well as division headquarters for one of the world's premier aerospace companies will generate media coverage throughout the United States. We're issuing the press release tomorrow. It is also a big win for the Ellsworth Business Park. I want to thank the village staff for their tremendous help on this project, and I also want to thank both of our school districts for their support. The Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation strongly supports the incentive agreement with Rexnord. I would like to introduce the two consultants from Cushman & Wakefield that I have had the pleasure of working with, Bradley Migdal and Shannon O'Hare. Just want to wave. Brad would like to make a few brief comments, and then we would both be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us. We are honored with the opportunity to present this project in front of the village. We went through a very detailed, oriented site selection process, so you guys can understand that the aerospace industry doesn't tend to thrive in Illinois. Where you see planes are made are South Carolina, Kansas, Alabama, not really in Illinois. But one of the greatest things about this facility is it's been here for a long period of time, and now it will stay here for a long period of time with your help. One of the unique things I want to talk about the aerospace industry too, is with this facility, this creates somewhat of an annuity of a part in a job. As you fly around planes all across the country, you notice that the planes aren't all brand new every 3 years like a car. Planes tend to last about 30 years. So when you think about the significant amount of engineering that goes into an airplane, the part is designed. And when our client makes that part will be there for a long period of time. So when you're sitting on a runway at O'Hare or any other airport and they're replacing a part, know that that part could be made in Ellsworth Business Park in Downers Grove. One of the things that I want to point out too, which is really significant, is that the facility is not just a manufacturing facility. It will be a state-of-the-art R&D and engineering facility, which will create great opportunities for the students not only in Downers Grove but in the state of Illinois to enter into the aerospace industry and live in the state of Illinois. These type of opportunities aren't readily available in Illinois, and if you want to get in the aerospace industry, you tend to go somewhere where aerospace is thriving a little bit more than Illinois. So this gives Illinois a step in the right direction. I think that a lot of good things potentially could start happening with Illinois. We actually have a budget, so now I think hopefully we can move in the right direction. And I think with the support of council to have and support this brand new state-of-the-art facility, it will give a shining building of new quality within that park that is, Michael, I don't want to quote exactly, but probably built in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, to create a new precast, beautiful building with glass and shining and attracting visitors from all over the aviation industry to Downers Grove. So I think that we hope for your support, and we believe that it's going to be a fantastic project for Illinois into the future.
Thank you. And if that's the end of the presentation, I can hardly contain myself, because if this were a card game, we'd be talking about a straight flush right here. This is a rare opportunity for any community in Illinois to not only retain a very valuable, critical industry and business, but to have it reinvested in and expanded is something that doesn't just happen by accident. This is a win not just for Downers Grove, it's a win for DuPage County, it's a win for the state of Illinois. This is, I think both of you are being far too modest in describing how important this is and the ramifications that it has beyond our borders. But I don't have to be that modest. I can say what it really is. This is a straight flush. As I was saying, this doesn't happen by accident. A lot of people, and again, the folks that just presented are far too modest to talk about all the work that they spent trying to make this happen. But let me just put this in a context. This is a company that was being courted by states in other parts of the country. States that were willing to write big checks for them to relocate there and leave Downers Grove, and leaving us with a big, old, empty building in an industrial park that we have been trying to renovate, reinvest in, and looking for projects like this to do this very, very thing. So the village of Downers Grove was competing with entire other states, ladies and gentlemen. And as you may or may not have heard, the state of Illinois hasn't had a whole lot of spare change laying around lately to help us with that effort. This was a prime example of local control and partnership amongst governing bodies. As was mentioned, the two school boards, District 58, District 99, both saw this for what it was, something that will, in the short term, they will give a tax rebate, because guess what they were getting from it if Rexnord leaves? Nothing. Whereas seeing that the investment that this would have in Ellsworth Industrial Park, the increase in the equalized assessed valuation, the long-term benefits of drawing talent to the area, of jobs, of the impact on stores, restaurants, hotels that will help provide revenue in spaces where everyone is competing with us in other communities and beyond. Being able to retain that here in Downers Grove helps us continue our mission of being good stewards of the resources that we have and avoiding things like property tax increases, because we can do better through growing our economic base rather than the tax rate. This is a big deal. Which is why I wasn't kidding when I said earlier that folks really should stick around to hear about this. And the next one, and frankly the one before this, was an expansion of a car dealership, which also generates sales tax revenue. We work very hard, and people who are not up here work even harder to try to attract and retain these quality businesses in our town, because they have real long-term and lasting benefits to the entire community. They may not pack Village Hall, but this is important stuff. So I wanted to make sure that there was due recognition of what a big deal this is for our community and beyond. And I want to extend my gratitude first and foremost to Rexnord for choosing to reinvest in Downers Grove in such a substantial way. Again, they could have gone to other states that were writing the big checks. We had to make it worth their while to be here, and we were able to come up with a really creative way to do that. And that's why I'm strongly in favor of this agreement, and thank them for reinvesting in Downers Grove and reinvesting in the Ellsworth Industrial Park. And thank you to everyone that made it possible. This was not easy to facilitate, and congratulations. I'm very excited about this and looking forward to the announcement. And I will stop beaming right now and ask if my colleagues have any questions or comments. Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to repeat anything that the mayor has said, other than to say thank you for choosing Downers Grove, and thank you to the Downers Grove EDC, the other governing bodies, 99 and 58, that helped make this possible. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from the council with respect to this item? I don't know if there's anything further you could say beyond that, but thank you very much. We're really looking forward to this long-term partnership for the best interest of the entire community. Thank you. Next item, please.
We just talked about...
Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions or comments from members of the audience? All right. Now, next item, please.
We just talked about significant reinvestment by a longtime business citizen in Ellsworth Park. The next three items concern significant reinvestment by a longtime business in the Oak Grove Commons Business Park. Here to present information on the remaining items on the first reading agenda is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. As Manager Fielman noted, the next item on the agenda is a plan unit development and rezoning and a license agreement at 1525 Brook Drive, better known as the Flavor Chem Campus. As you're all aware, the Flavor Chem Campus is in the Oak Grove Business Park in the north side of town here, just a little bit northwest of Finley and Butterfield Road, here outlined in the circle. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see the Flavor Chem Campus outlined here in red. You'll see that Brook Drive bisects the campus, so there's 3 buildings on the south side and 5 buildings on the north side there. It's Flavor Chem is looking to create a corporate campus to connect the campus. The proposed plan shown here includes a license agreement for the use of Brook Drive, which is shown here on an outline. That's the current right-of-way, which is proposed to maintain. The license agreement would allow Flavor Chem to use the right-of-way, while the village will still maintain ownership of the right-of-way. With the campus plan, you can see all the buildings in white are the existing buildings on the campus. On the west side of the right-of-way would include 2 new parking lots and a plaza in the middle of that parking lot. The plaza allows Flavor Chem employees to easily cross the former right-of-way there to get in between buildings. On the east side of the Brook Drive there is the street south curb will be maintained with some new parking spaces on the north side there. Again, providing access to the building that has a shared access and a shared drive aisle there with the Flavor Chem campus, the building to the southeast. What we have next is, in case emergency access vehicles have to go through here, they can still make it through the site throughout the right-of-way there. The plaza will have a mountable curb, so our trucks can go up and over the plaza if need be in a case of emergency to provide emergency services throughout the campus as well. Flavor Chem did change the plan slightly from the original plan, and they included a couple of truck areas here that can help assist in getting some trucks off. So on Center Circle on the north side here, we have a truck turnoff, so a truck can pull off of Center Circle to back into the loading docks. And then at the intersection of Brook Drive and Center Circle there's an additional pavement on the right-of-way to allow those trucks to be able to pull in as they back in to the loading dock in the southwest corner, which would then further allow other traffic to get around the property if there's a truck backing into the Flavor Chem campus. Excuse me. In the blue here, you'll see proposed building additions. So we have a loading dock in the southwest corner. In the middle lower part here in the southeast corner is a building addition connecting the R&D. In the middle there by the plaza would be the corporate headquarters, and then some building connections to the warehouse and some future expansion. So really creating an interconnected campus for Flavor Chem is what's being proposed. Currently, you can see the Flavor Chem campus here outlined in purple. This is the existing traffic pattern around the industrial park. If the right-of-way is used by Flavor Chem, we still maintain the existing traffic pattern around the industrial park with the 2 access points remaining. The campus currently shown here in yellow now does contain multiple zoning districts, M1, light manufacturing, and ORM, which is office research manufacturing. As proposed, there would be a rezoning to all of an ORM/PUD, which we do for all of our new PUDs. With regard to the comprehensive plan and how the plan meets the comprehensive plan, the proposal, as Manager Fieldman noted, invests in a long-term local business. It expands the employment base. It upgrades existing buildings within the industrial park. It improves parking lots, adds some green space on the campus as well, and makes some stormwater improvements, and expands the headquarters building that is compatible with both the industrial and office uses in the vicinity and in the office park there. With regard to the zoning ordinance, the plan unit development criteria have been met, as have the rezoning criteria. At this point, if there's any questions for me, I can answer those at this time. Also, Ken Malinowski with Flavor Chem is here as well to talk about the project.
Sure, thank you. Before Ken makes his way up, any questions from the council of village staff? No questions of staff? Please, Ken? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. In 1981, Flavor Chem Corporation moved from a 3,000 square foot building in Bellwood, Illinois to the Oak Grove Business Park in Downers Grove. Relocation was necessitated by a growing customer base, changing manufacturing requirements, and a desire to be located in a growing, vibrant community. In a rapidly consolidating industry, Flavor Chem has remained a family-owned and operated business. The second generation of ownership is shaping our future with a clear mission of sustainable growth through continued investment. Joining me here today is our principal owner and son of our founder, Ross Brovieri. Over the course of 30 years, we've been fortunate and opportunistic to acquire 8 properties in the business park. Today, we employ over 250 employees in Downers Grove. Job positions include manufacturing, warehousing, research and development, regulatory compliance, quality assurance, and all corporate support functions. With a strong desire to continue expanding our corporate headquarters and manufacturing in Downers Grove, we initiated a campus master planning project. Our objective was to determine if Flavor Chem could effectively utilize our properties to address current challenges and meet future requirements. Critical elements were identified. First, we need to be able to expand our footprint and accommodate additional capacity. We aim to improve operational efficiencies by reorganizing, redeveloping, and connecting buildings. We also need to ensure that the site can accommodate employee and visitor parking as the business grows. Our parking situation worsens with each building expansion and connection and with each new hire. After a thorough investigation of configuration options, these most basic requirements cannot be met without creating a planned unit development and vacating Brook Drive. Second, we need to improve employee and guest safety, as movement between buildings cannot be eliminated. We expect our building and land improvements will benefit our employees and the overall aesthetics of the business park. Third, as a food ingredient manufacturer, it is an industry requirement to control site and facility access. Without vacating Brook Drive, we have limited opportunities to improve food security programs beyond what's already been implemented. We believe through a planned unit development and vacation of Brook Drive, we can accomplish our long-term objectives to create a global corporate headquarters, expand all facets of our operations, and continue to deepen our roots in Downers Grove. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for reinvesting in Downers Grove. We are a landlocked community. We don't have huge tracts of land that we can use to attract and retain businesses, either from outside our community or ones that are thriving, as Flavor Chem has within our community, when they need to expand, which is a good problem to have, a need to expand. We want to retain businesses like that. So we have to be creative sometimes. And I'm really pleased and once again appreciative of everyone who was involved, both village staff, obviously the petitioner, Flavor Chem, Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation, in coming up with a creative solution here that utilizes land we already have in a facilitative way. One of the things that we try to say about economic development and supportive businesses that generate revenue, that help us keep our overall tax rate down for our residents, is being facilitators, not regulators. How do we reasonably get to yes, rather than no, sorry, can't do that, in order to achieve a goal which is very high on the list of this council and many prior councils of attracting and retaining quality businesses in our community. And so I'm very excited about this creative solution. It's very creative, and I'm glad to see there's been some flexibility in adjusting things here and there to try to make it overall more successful. I would also just have to add that not only has Flavor Chem been a longtime business in the Village of Downers Grove, but you've also been terrific corporate partners and have been involved in the community itself in many different ways that I won't go into right now, but that's another reason why we like to do what we can to facilitate a positive outcome. So I'm very excited to see this proposal come forward, too. Questions from the council? Questions from the audience? Yes, please, sir. Thank you. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening.
And thank you for your patience, by the way.
You know, when I driving over here, I thought I was going to have controversial comments. And then the first hour erupted, and this is going to seem very anticlimactic. But my name is Mark Brackett, and I'm the owner of 2901 Finley Road, Downers Grove, which is directly adjacent to Flavor Chem. I'm here tonight to urge you to reject the resolution authorizing an agreement with Flavor Chem to close Brook Drive, a public street that we and our tenants use on a daily basis for the purpose of expanding the parking lot for Flavor Chem. Let that sink in for a minute. I want to be very clear on this. If you authorize this resolution 2017-7414 and corresponding ordinances 2017-7412 and 7413, you're voting to close a public street and allow Flavor Chem to turn it into a parking lot for the exclusive use of one business, Flavor Chem. During the Plan Commission hearing, Flavor Chem was asking that the road be vacated, and now they've changed legal tactics and are asking for a license under the false pretense that changing from vacation to a license addresses the concerns of the Plan Commission. It makes no difference what you call it, a vacation or a license. The result is exactly the same. Brook Drive will be closed for the sole purpose and the sole benefit to expand the parking lot of Flavor Chem. The Plan Commission voted 6-1 to reject the closing of Brook Drive. During the Plan Commission hearings, Flavor Chem tried to argue many reasons for the closing of Brook Drive, all of which are ridiculous, from stating that closing Brook Drive is a benefit to the public because it will stop cut-through traffic, which it will not, from Butterfield Road. And then even claiming that the closing of Brook Drive is necessary because of concerns over terrorism. As I stated before, this issue boils down to one simple fact. Approving these resolutions and ordinances closes a public street for the sole benefit of one company, Flavor Chem, so they can have more parking. If Flavor Chem needs more parking, they should purchase another building on Brook or Center Circle and create a new parking lot. If you approve closing Brook Drive to expand the parking at Flavor Chem, you will set a precedent. I would love to have more parking at my building, which is also on Brook Drive. If I come before this council and make the request to close the rest of Brook Drive down for my parking lot, are you going to grant me the same? Lastly, the Village of Downers Grove recently rebuilt Brook Drive to the tune of somewhere around $3 million. Not all of which would be lost because there's some underground, but it's still a large sum of money. How can you justify the money you spent rebuilding this road only to turn around and give it to Flavor Chem for their sole benefit? Do not approve this resolution nor these ordinances.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Yes, please, sir. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Michael O'Connor. I'm an attorney. I represent United States Brass and Copper. They own the properties at 1401 Brook Drive and also at 1418 Center Circle, and they employ approximately 40 people. Those are high-paying, quality jobs. I would echo a number of the things that this gentleman just said, and I'll try not to repeat them again, but as I was listening to his comments, I was thinking to myself, what else do I have to say? And I only have a few things to say. First, the first time that Flavor Chem brought their petition to the Planning Commission was on February 27th. And I want to make it clear that we don't object to anything that Flavor Chem is asking to do except the vacation of Brook Drive. They're a wonderful corporate partner. They've been a wonderful neighbor. We're glad to see them expanding, but not at our expense. Vacating Brook Drive will have a tremendous negative impact on all of the other properties in this subdivision. On February 27th, when they appeared in front of the Planning Commission, the gist of the Planning Commissioner's comments at that time were, go back to the drawing board, figure out what you can do that doesn't include vacating Brook Drive, and come back to us. Flavor Chem then came back on June 5th of this year, presented much the same plan, and at that time the commissioners voted 6-1 to recommend not approving their petition. A couple of the comments, Commissioner Gasson said Flavor Chem doesn't need any more parking. So what's the purpose of vacating Brook Drive? Commissioner Culvaney, I believe is the way his name is pronounced, he said there's nothing preventing cars from cutting through Brook Drive. And the point of that comment was many cars are using Brook Drive to access Finley instead of going north on Downers Drive out to Butterfield. And it's a tremendous relief valve for the retail along the south side or the north side of Butterfield. Commissioner Maurer said, absolutely, I would be in favor of this if it didn't include vacating Brook Drive. There were a number of similar comments along those lines. One commissioner said, isn't there something else that we can do to solve this problem? Can't we create a pedestrian walkway, an underground walkway? Isn't there a solution other than vacating Brook Drive? Nonetheless, today, Flavor Chem is back here today where they've changed some of their semantics. And they're saying, no, instead of vacating Brook Drive now, we're simply going to take a license. And as this gentleman pointed out, it's a distinction without a difference, or vice versa. All right? It is simply they want to close Brook Drive. It doesn't matter what you call it, whether it's a license or a vacation. Frankly, I think this is even worse than the original proposal. They're not paying for the land. They're not going to pay real estate taxes on that land in the future. It's going to have a tremendous negative impact on all the surrounding properties. So I think you really need to think hard about this. I understand the advantage to keeping a company like Flavor Chem in Downers Grove. They're a tremendous asset, but not at this expense. You also have to look at the dozens of other companies in this industrial park that will be negatively impacted by this. their access to their businesses is critical. United States Brass and Copper has dozens of trucks that access its facilities every week. It is going to be significantly more difficult for those trucks to get access to the United States Brass and Copper facilities. What does United States Brass and Copper do at that point? What do the other companies in this industrial park do at that point when they can no longer get access to their facilities? They start looking elsewhere. So now you've created this wonderful corporate campus for Flavor Chem at the expense of the negative impact on all the surrounding properties. Now those properties are going to go vacant until they're sold for a less intensive use at a lower value, reduces property values. Then ultimately, let's hope that Flavor Chem continues to grow. Again, I can't say it frequently enough. We want to see Flavor Chem succeed. But what happens when they outgrow this corporate campus? Then at that point, they've got to try to sell this corporate campus because they need to find property elsewhere. Then what happens to this large piece of land, and what happens to Brook Drive at that point? Do you reopen it again? This is a permanent decision. You're going to have to live with this for years. During the Planning Commission hearings, there was a lot of talk about the traffic studies that were done. There was one traffic study done in September of 2016, and it talked about a relatively modest increase in the traffic loads in this area. But it also talked about the fact that at the intersection of Downers Drive and Butterfield Road, in a 4-year period between 2011 and 2015, there were 281 accidents. 55 of those accidents included personal injury. When you close Brook Drive, you're going to force even more traffic through that intersection of Downers Drive and Butterfield. That intersection in September, when the weather is good and it's not a holiday season, that intersection had a D level of service. It was almost a failing grade. I'm certain that during bad weather, during the holidays, it has a failing grade, a failing level of service. It's going to be far worse if you grant the license now to allow Flavor Chem to use that property. There are a number of factors that you're obviously aware of that you should be taking into account when you're deciding whether to approve the PUD and the vacating or the licensing of Brook Drive. Obviously, we've talked about the effect on surrounding properties and property values. We've talked about the diminution in those property values versus the public safety. We already have recognized, and Flavor Chem's own traffic study shows that these are dangerous intersections that are just going to be made more dangerous through this action. One of the standards is looking at how long a property has been vacant prior to the requested zoning relief. In this case, this is a very viable commercial property. It will continue to be a very viable commercial property. This is not critical to Flavor Chem. It is something they would like to have. I don't blame them for wanting to do it, but not at the expense of the other property owners in the industrial park. One of the other standards is the value to the community. Again, as this gentleman pointed out, it benefits one resident of the community at the expense of dozens of other surrounding communities that, quite frankly, cumulatively have a much larger economic impact on Downers Grove than Flavor Chem. If you take all of the businesses that would be impacted by this licensing of Brook Drive, they have a far larger impact in terms of employment, real estate taxes, all the other metrics for evaluating the impact of a business on a community. For those reasons, on behalf of United States Brass and Copper, we ask that you once again accept your Planning Commission's recommendation and deny approval of this request. We don't have any concerns about the rest of their request. They've done a nice job addressing our concerns, but the vacation of Brook Drive is just too great of an expense to the surrounding property owners.
Thank you for your comments on behalf of your client.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the audience on this item? Yes, please. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. My name's Steve Giesler. I live at 1214 Maple here in Downers Grove, and I'm one of the owners of 1501, 1503 Brook Drive, which we built in 1977. I have to commend you, council members, in that on a holiday weekend, you were given over 600 pages of documents to review on this issue, and just wondering if I could hand you one more. Of
course.
Possible? What do I do? I'll get to it shortly, but I'm not going to repeat any of the comments made by the other gentlemen, but I certainly agree with them, particularly in regard to the traffic and the closing of Brook Drive has a very serious effect on our property. Instead, I am going to expand on that and why we think it does have a detrimental effect on our property. At the February 27th Plan Commission, they did make a comment, and I'll quote it here. Revised the landscaping and signage plan adjacent to 1501, 1503 Brook Drive to separate the business identity from the Flavor Chem campus and maintain visibility. The Flavor Chem response to that came at the following meeting, and that said, landscaping and signage are reduced along the right-of-way immediately abutting 1501, 1503 Brook Drive so as to visually identify it as a separate business. They also said the existing southern curb line and sidewalk will remain in place, resulting in that portion of Brook Drive to retain the appearance of a public street retaining corner lot visibility. We don't necessarily agree with that. Our building would be at the gateway to the Flavor Chem campus. The site plans and renderings that they submitted conveniently leave our building in light gray, because if it was shown clearly, it would look like it's part of the campus. We're a single-story brick building, like most of the buildings on Brook Drive. We built their building and two of the other buildings that they purchased since then. We use the same architect, so there are similarities in appearance of the buildings. According to the drawings that I was able to take a look at fairly quickly in this relatively short period of time since Friday, Brook Drive in front of our building would become Flavor Chem Drive. So would our address become 1501 and 1503 Flavor Chem Drive? Not much separation of business identity there. We also have visibility issues. We built on a corner lot, and that was in 1977, to have two elevations visible from the street. That's good for marketing. We could have purchased any number of cheaper lots down the block or elsewhere in the park. With Brook Drive being closed, only people going to Flavor Chem or already coming to our building will see the front of it. No matter what the documents say, we will lose visibility. On top of that, we just spent close to $40,000 for exterior restoration work, including new windows, fascia, painting, mudjacking of sidewalks, and landscaping. Hopefully that doesn't go to waste. There's a couple of truck maneuvering issues. We have two drive-in doors on the west side serving warehouse spaces for two tenants. Currently, it's easy in, easy out for almost any size truck. Under the new plan, we don't believe that's going to continue to be the case. If I could direct you now to the sketch, the very rough sketch that I did myself this afternoon, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but I took this, this was from the B1 drawing submitted by Flavor Chem, and it's labeled Plat of Survey. And outlined in pink, it appears to be an easement that they think we need so that we can maintain access to our west parking lot. Well, if you draw a truck trying to get into our west lot, the blue line would be ingress. They would have to go past what they think our easement should be. And then, more importantly, getting out, that to me seems like a pretty tight turn. As I said, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I haven't seen any documentation that shows how a truck would maneuver in there, what size vehicle could make that maneuver. So somebody needs to show me, and you, I hope, how that would work, because that would certainly negatively affect my building. There's also an issue with access to the press dock on the east side, but I kind of explained that in the online comments section that hopefully you have been able to look at and read. Staff had made they made a number of recommendations for this project, but number 8 was to, and I'll read this as a quote, "A cross-access agreement will be required for the parking on the west side of the building at the southwest corner of Brook Drive and Downers Drive, 1503 Brook, 1501 Brook, 2900 Downers." We've not been approached by anybody about what that would be or what that would look like. I certainly don't want to be in a position of being granted an easement where I'm responsible for any of the costs, maintenance, or construction that goes on what was Brook Drive, when I'm currently paying taxes to have that done, and done very well by the village. I'll wrap this up now. As a business owner and a resident, I do understand wanting to retain solid businesses and help them expand. As a contractor, I've constructed many additions and new facilities for successful clients. But like anyone else, we want to be treated fairly, and we don't think that's the case here. Anything that diminishes the visibility and access to our property negatively impacts the value of it. Now, I see that, at least I'm getting the feeling from what I've read and what I've heard, that the village wants to move this matter along fairly quickly. But let's take a step here and look back. Flavor Chem went to the Plan Commission at the end of February, and then they went before the Plan Commission again at the beginning of June to respond to Plan Commission comments from the earlier meeting. Well, they kind of responded because the Plan Commission did ask them to come back without closing Brook Drive. That didn't happen. Now it's 3 months later, and they've come before the village council with the same, basically the same requirements. All they really seem to want to do initially is close the street. And this, while we're entering the winter season with busy holiday shopping coming up, it just doesn't make sense to me that things need to be pushed along that quickly. They're certainly not going to be doing any paving over the winter, and I believe there's a 60-day requirement to give you notice that they want to close Brook Drive after everything's been approved. So nothing will happen until next spring at best. This is an important decision, and obviously it affects my property in particular. So I'd urge you not to rush to judgment and take a little time if necessary. And just to be clear, like the others, I'm delighted to see them want to expand and create a campus facility. Just don't close Brook Drive. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and for the drawing and the 2 points that you made, which we'll look into and take into consideration. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Yes, please. Or actually, any of the 3 items related to the Flavor Chem project, please. Good evening, welcome. I said good evening, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Halpin. I'm here on behalf of Elite Electronic Engineering. We're a business located at 1516 Center Circle, and also the property owners of the adjacent buildings at 1500 and 1430 Center Circle. And I'm just here to follow on with the gentleman in front of me to say that we urge the council to reject these proposals from Flavor Chem for closing Brook Drive. No matter what you call it, like they said, it's still going to result in the closure of Brook Drive and the effect on access within Center Circle and Downers Drive and Brook Drive, and the secondary effects on the traffic around that area. Now, Elite Electronic Engineering has been at that facility on 1516 Center Circle since 1975. We have 75 employees, of which 10 have been added in the last 18 months. So we are a growing business as well, and we appreciate the efforts of the city to accommodate a local business, to keep them, help them expand within their footprint, but it can't be at the expense of all the other businesses around them. So that is our major concern, is the closure. The central issue is the closure of Brook Drive and the effect that it will have on the rest of the business park around that area. And that this proposal is essentially the same as it was in February 27th when it was voted down 6-1 by the council. So I'm not going to go into, they already stated all the reasons why we are against the proposal, so I won't waste too much more time reiterating that, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Other questions or comments on these related items from members of the audience? All right, hearing none. Thank you for those that did share their views. Any further thoughts or comments from the Village Council? The only thing I'll just say is obviously the Plan Commission, like most of our, almost all of our boards and commissions, are a recommending board. Sometimes we agree with them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we take what they say and we do something completely different. Ultimately, the decision is at the Village Council level, so while obviously their thoughts and their recommendations are certainly something we take into account, ultimately the decision is here, and it's sort of de novo. We sort of look at it fresh. So obviously we know what they did and what they recommended, but ultimately the decision is ours, so we appreciate everyone sharing and repeating what was said. The only thing I'll point out is that there actually is a big difference between a license and a vacation. I won't go into the details, but those are two very different things. Yes, the effect is the same, is that the street can no longer be used in the way it previously was, but there's a significant difference, and that's a big change from last time. Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, two quick things. Number one, I haven't poured through all of the meeting minutes as we're sitting here, but my recollection on the Plan Commission meeting minutes from at least June 5 is that one of the big hang-ups for them was the $380,000 that would potentially be waived by this council as a fee for the vacation of Brook Drive. Frankly, I think that's beyond the purview of the Plan Commission. That is a decision for this body. What to do with the land itself is one thing, what to do with the value of it is beyond the purview of the Plan Commission. Secondly, I do believe that all the businesses still have access to their properties, and now there's some question as to adequacy, I understand, from the property owners, but that is a critical question as well, one that I'll be poring over in the meantime. I think I'll save the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other final comments from the council? Obviously, we're not making any decisions tonight, not voting on this. So thank you for those that spoke. If there's no further questions from the council, excuse me, sir, did you have a... Yes, technically, public comment is closed, but you know what? I'm in a giving mood tonight, so if you'd like to come to the podium, please.
David Haugen, on Forest Avenue, resident since 1975. I served on the District 58 Board of Education for 3 terms, 12 years. And when there were questions about building construction, additions, I took it upon myself to go and walk around and look. I would encourage, when I read all of this, I can't visualize it, but I'm wondering if council members have actually walked or driven the area so that they can internalize what the people are talking about.
Yes, we often do. Just as you did in the discharge of your service, we do the same thing. And in fact, probably more, because I have a little bit of a suspicion we probably do a little bit more of this stuff, this land use and construction, than the school board did. But yes, and frankly, this project has been in exploration for quite some time. The suggestion that anything is rushing here is not to be the case, although we're moving this along in the normal course, but certainly new information will be considered, and I made note of the questions that were asked about the new diagram that we were presented here tonight. So thank you again for the public comment. Commissioner Rowe.
I just wanted to let you know that, yes, I actually sat there for probably a good 3 hours one night driving around it, just to make sure that my ideas were correct. So it can be confusing, especially if you're just looking at a map. But going out there and driving it is eye-opening and does make a difference, and we have done that.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, very good. Well, again, that was just a workshop. We're not deciding anything tonight. That won't be voted on until a future meeting. And I believe that brings us to the end of our first reading agenda, our workshop agenda.
Yes, sir.
All right, didn't want to sneak anything on the end?
Nothing on that, and nothing on the manager's report either.
Oh, wow, see, that was a great segue. So item 9, there's nothing in the manager's report. That brings us to item 10, the village attorney's report. Good evening, Ms. Petrarca.
Good evening, Mayor. Only 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance rezoning certain property known as the Flavor Crumb property. Second is an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance to designate the property at 1500, 1509, 1515, 1516, 1525, and 1528 Brook Drive, 1429, 1503, 1505, and 1515 Center Circle as Planned Unit Development Number 59, and to authorize a campus master plan for the Flavor Chem Corporation. Both of these items will be on next week's active agenda. Thank you, Mayor. That is all.
Thank you. That brings us to item 11, which is reserved for council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with those who are here and watching at home either items of interest to the community or goings-on in the community, or if they serve on other boards such as the Economic Development Corporation or other boards, it's an opportunity to report out on things in their role as liaison. So I'll start with, since I was waving towards them anyway, I'll start with Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of the EDC board, I was privileged to attend their monthly meeting last month for the first time. Thank you to everybody again. I don't want to give Michael Casa a heart attack or anything by revealing anything of confidence, but I can tell you there are some exciting things in the hopper, in addition to some of the things we've seen tonight, so stay tuned. They're doing great work. I'm very impressed by how dedicated and knowledgeable all of the folks are on the EDC board. Secondly, the question was raised earlier during public comment about appointing and considering appointees who value inclusion. A specific request was made with regard to the pledge on that. I hope my colleagues will take that very seriously. And third and finally, if you'll indulge me personally for a moment, I just want to thank my wife for allowing me to be here. I was originally supposed to miss tonight for personal reasons, but given the topic that was at the top of the agenda, she absolutely insisted that I be here tonight. It goes to show you, number one, it's even more evidence that I'm married up. And I'm very fortunate to have done so. But it shows her dedication to this community and her support for my dedication to this community. And I can't thank her enough. Thanks, Mayor.
We thank her as well. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, the Education Foundation of Downers Grove District 58 is going to be hosting its 4th annual German-style Oktoberfest on Saturday, September 16th from noon to 11 p.m. and Sunday, September 17th from noon to 8 p.m. The fundraiser raises money to support District 58 schools. It's going to be in downtown Downers Grove, Forest parking lot at Burlington Avenue between Forest Avenue and Main Street. Admission is $10 for adults, $5 for senior citizens and teenagers, and free for children ages, babies up to 13 with a paying adult. And you can buy tickets at the door or online at www.58foundation.org/Oktoberfest-2017. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Earl.
Well, if Commissioner Waldeck had been here, he would have talked about the art show this weekend, or this coming weekend, for downtown management. So if you get a chance on Main Street, Saturday and Sunday afternoon, you can come out and find a lovely selection of art to view and for purchase. So we hope to see you all out there.
And that would be this weekend, September 9th and 10th, from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. in beautiful downtown Downers Grove. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner White.
No report.
Thank you. I have a few things to report. As many know, and my colleagues certainly know, I'm also the District 3 municipal representative to the DuPage County Stormwater Committee, and that committee met today, and there's occasionally some items of interest I'd like to share with the community. One of them, and my colleagues, one of them is the floodplain mapping update, which seems to have been going on forever. Well, it continues to go on. Here's where things stand. What this is working with FEMA and the Illinois State Water Survey. DuPage County works with them and other local governments with respect to the floodplain maps that come out periodically. And I know that the floodplain maps are of great importance to certain members of our community, so I'm trying to keep people apprised as to the progress in these maps and opportunities for public comment and so on and so forth. Here's where the current status is. The 30-day public comment period for the revised preliminary maps closed at the end of August. Comments that had been submitted during that comment period will be addressed, and the process to initiate the appeal period will take place over the next several months. The 90-day appeal period for the maps is not expected to begin until sometime in early 2018, and map adoption, which is then what everyone has to live by, is expected in early 2019. So that's just an update of where things stand. Also, on a related item, wanted to let everyone know that on June 1st of this year, 2017, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, released revised preliminary flood insurance rate maps, flood insurance rate map panels, and a revised preliminary flood insurance study for all communities within DuPage County. Incorporated into the preliminary panels and maps are 24 watershed studies developed under the direction of stormwater management. The reason why this is important is when this is finalized, it may have an impact and may be beneficial to some residents with respect to floodplain insurance and flood insurance. So more information on that as it comes forward. And then last, I just wanted to send a compliment to our own staff with respect to a project that DuPage County is doing regarding several watershed plan studies. One that is just or about to conclude or is in progress, or is about to begin, I should say, is the St. Joseph Creek watershed plan. And there was a public comment document that was issued for that plan. We submitted the Village of Downers Grove submitted a number of comments with respect to St. Joseph Creek's watershed, asking that some additional water quality projects be added to the plan. I'm pleased to report, although I know staff already knows this because they're already 3 steps ahead of me, is that all of our water quality projects that we asked to be added to the plan have been accepted by DuPage County Stormwater Management, and they will be including that, which obviously the St. Joseph Creek watershed runs right through our community, so this is good news. Now, why is it good news? What does this mean? Well, now we have a plan, there'll be a study, great, piece of paper. Why do we care about that? What it means is that when anyone, whether it's DuPage County or the Village of Downers Grove, wishes to do some water quality project or other project pertaining to the St. Joseph Creek watershed, having that study in place, that documentation in place, will put us in better position to get outside dollars, grants, and other funding to do work on those projects. So ultimately, this can be very beneficial to the Village of Downers Grove by reducing our costs by having the county do this study. So this is ultimately beneficial for us. Enough about stormwater. I just wanted to report that out, unless there are any questions from my colleagues about that. I mentioned earlier today that we had a meeting once upon a time ago where there were busloads of senior residents that filled Village Hall because there was a bit of a controversy at the Oak Trace Senior Center about their plans for reinvestment and reconstruction. And we had a very lively discussion and meeting with respect to that project. The groundbreaking on that project, which was approved back then, will be taking place, I believe, tomorrow. So that's a project that folks will be able to see going on along Fairview Avenue as they drive south from 55th Street in our fine village. And then last, Mr. Castle wouldn't say it, so I'll say it for him. There's another event going on. If you want to take a quick break from the Fine Arts Festival, you can go over to the amazing Downers Grove Golf Course, and there is a golf outing this weekend that is hosted by the Grove Foundation, which works with the Downers Grove Park District and furthers their mission. It's I don't know if it's sold out, but it's a very well-attended event and for a good cause. So if anyone's interested in playing some golf on Saturday afternoon and also doing something good for the community, check out the Grove Foundation's golf outing, which is this Saturday. That ends my report. I have nothing further at this point in time, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
I move that this council adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?